Okay, today we are still on lesson number 3, and we have covered schedule and scope, um, and our next topic is resources, right? Um, we have already covered in our second lesson, we have covered stakeholders and communication. Two knowledge areas were covered already. Then we have covered three knowledge areas here: scope, time, resources, and one other one. This is resources we are going to start now. And in resources, what do we have? Now, when I say resources, that means all kinds of resources, and that includes the human resources as well as the non-intelligent or inhuman resources, like materials, equipment, and tools, and equipment, and other things like that. And people, naturally, people will involve your team members, your naturally stakeholders. We have already talked about. They are not your resources. They are actually you have to engage them. But people means your team members, people who are working for the project. So these resources are required in the project. So as far as the people are concerned, the team members are concerned, you have to kind of value them and empower them. Number one, we must understand them. We must have appropriate skills available in these people. And once we select right people, then we have to trust them, we have to value them, and we have to empower them. Then these are the internal resources. Then we have got external resources, which are like mostly inhuman or unintelligent, and these could be, uh, equipment and materials and all. They how we can leverage them, and if at all, we have to have some human resource from external sources, like an expert or a subject matter expert or a consultant or somebody who temporarily joins the team. Those resources are also to be dealt like human resources. So this is all about the resources and what do we do with them. First, we develop a resource management plan, like we developed a scope management plan, a requirement management plan, a schedule management plan. We develop here a resource management plan, and here I decide how am I going to deal with all kinds of resources. I set out my rules naturally in light of the project governance provided to me by my bosses. The project manager, will now chalk out my exact behavior. How am I going to deal with them? So, how will I identify them, people and equipment? How to acquire them? Then, what are going to be various roles and responsibilities of these people? What authorities, responsibilities they would enjoy, what competencies and skill they would have. So I have to ensure as a project manager that the competent and skillful people are available. And as I said, once I have the right people, I have to respect them, I have to trust them, I have to value them, and that's how we deal with the human resource. As far as the other equipment is concerned, we have to ensure like keeping an inventory of everything, planning for everything when something is to be available. And you might have heard about the theory of just in time. Just in time applies to all types of resources, but specifically non-living resources, which do not think, which are not intelligent, which do not have their own opinion. So these resources are to be made available just in time, rather than we, kind of acquire them at the very last moment, where when it may be too late, or we acquire them too early when we have to spend a lot of money on their safety, security, maintenance, and all that. As far as the human resources are concerned, that also we must make them available just in time. right? We should not do that. That the project has started and we are still thinking about from where I am going to get the resources. So this has to be pre-planned. It's also just in time also applies to them. But we covered that in forming, storming, norming, and all that. So we covered that how these resources are to be engaged. Then we have already talked about the different organizational structures in which the project can be conducted more efficiently or more effectively. But here we are talking about the organization structure within the project. Who is the project manager? Who is the project sponsor? How teams are divided amongst under them, and this would be your project organizational chart, which could be displayed on a chart. It could be diagrammatical. Then project team resource management. How am I going to deal with them? The human resources which are available to me. So I will provide guidance in that resource management plan on how to define, select, and manage and release those resources, right? Then maybe I need to provide them certain trainings. So I plan for that. Team development methods that maybe, like group activities or other things by which I uh, bring my team up to speed. Then, when we are in monitoring and control, how are we going to measure the performance of these resources? How are we going to control them? How maybe we may like to improve their skills in the way and things like that. That would be all included in resource control. And ultimately, there must be a recognition plan for human resources. You must respect them, you must recognize them, and reward them whenever required. Then we come over, once we have developed the resource management plan, that is the time we estimate the resources and assign those resources uh, to various tasks. And for those who are human resources, we allocate their responsibility and their role. So assign team members to the project, decide roles and responsibilities, create team directory. This is kind of a directory of all the team members. We must develop an organization chart for specifically for this project, and naturally, we should schedule these resources. We have already developed the schedule, but now we add the timeline of the resources, when the resources are to be advertised, when they have to be interviewed, and all that. So that would be the inclusion of those resources into the schedule. Project schedules, resource assignments, and budgets are all interrelated, and they all have to be estimated. Schedule, the duration has to be estimated. In cost, the budget has to be estimated. And resources, the quantity of resources, the number of resources required could be estimated. So, if I tell you that there are three types of estimates, then they would be the duration estimate, the cost or budget estimate, and the resource estimate. So, all of these three types of estimations cannot be done in isolation. Because you see, as I gave you an example of law of diminishing returns yesterday, that is exactly what we need to do here. That we have to see how many resources can be employed most efficiently on an activity. Moreover, those resources are not, they should be used in the most judicious manner, in most economical manner, and they should not slow down the project due to the law of diminishing returns, right? So these are the three types of estimates. Remember that. And what were the three types of objectives? Fatma, do you remember? What are the three objectives of a project? Objectives of a project could be determined based on,
and
yes,
I
scope,
forgot, like
time, time, and
time
cost.
and yeah, the cost.
and cost. And if at all you want to include the fourth one, that would be quality. But scope, time, and cost are three project objectives which have to be baseline. Quality need not be baseline, right? Quality, we can work according to the quality management plan. We don't need to have a separate baseline for quality because as far as the scope is concerned, quality is considered within that scope, and therefore that is computed already. But because these four things, scope, time, cost, and quality, can impact each other, right? If we reduce the time, our cost may increase, our scope may be adjusted accordingly, and things like that. Similarly, these three estimates, the schedule estimate, the resource estimate, and the budget estimate, may also affect each other. Then tailor responsibilities according to team needs and project approach. So when you are assigning the responsibilities within the project, look at it, what approach you are using. Maybe if you are using agile approach, it would be different assignment of responsibilities. If it is a predictive, it could be different. So you must be mindful of the fact that what kinds of responsibilities can be there held with the different team members. When you are dealing with human resources, you must consider all kinds of required resources. That could be the technical resources as well as the soft skills, are what we call the power skills, right? So that means the experience, knowledge, and skill required for that position and their attitude. What kind of attitude do we demand? Naturally, we want people with positive attitude. So definitely, I would add it as a criteria for selection of these resources. And then, if at all required, you must also consider the global and regional factors, meaning the people in the team might be from different backgrounds, different geographies, and different cultural situations that must also be considered. Okay, when we have assigned the resources, we can come up with a calendar of resources, and this is on a calendar you would know the date when a specific resource has to be mobilized, when this resource can be spared, and things like that. So you can use a resource calendar to track which resource was supposed to be available by this point in time and which resources could not be available and things like that. Well, it is not only for the human resources, even the non-living resources like equipment, tools, and all that, that also is shown on the resource calendar. Then a specific resource, maybe I need a crane for my project, so when this crane should be available on site, right? And when we will no more need it and we can return it. Use this resource calendars when estimating your project activities and understanding their dependencies. We have talked about the different relationships, finish to start, finish to finish, and all. That will also be impacted by the resource calendar. The availability of people, if it is less than what is required, then naturally our timelines will be stretched accordingly. It specifies when and for how long any identified team or physical resource will be available during the project, and that is what we are pointing at, the just-in-time theory. And we also understand the concept of progressive elaboration. Naturally, when we are estimating the resources, we may not exactly know all the parameters based on which we would have chosen those resources. So it might be possible the initial estimate you created for the resources over the life of the project, you learn new facts and figures based on which you progressively elaborate and amend these resources accordingly. So resource calendar can be used in any kind of project. It doesn't matter whether it is a agile project, is a project, but naturally, our resource calendar should be very useful for that. Then we have got the responsibility assignment matrix. Actually, there are two different types of matrices. One is RAM, responsibility assignment matrix, and the other is RASI. RASI stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed, right? So this is a conventional method. This is a traditional method where we at least have every team member assigned respective responsibilities, what they will be held accountable for, who are the people who just need to be consulted. Naturally, these stakeholders who are consultants are the subject matter experts. They may not be giving orders to the team. They may be suggesting solutions to the team, and it is the prerogative of the project manager whether to take the suggestion or act on the suggestion of the consultant or the subject matter expert. So when I say consulted, it is definitely a two-way communication between you and the consultant, but at the same time, whatever suggestions are being given to you, it is your decision whether you want to uh, uh, abide by that or you don't want to do that. Then there is fourth category, that is those people like the end user, the people who we don't interact very often because they are very large in number. Probably when we were collecting data, we said we will circulate questionnaires and surveys to them to collect their feedback. For them, we also established a strategy in stakeholder engagement that they must be, kept informed. So, who are those people who have to be kept informed? So, this is a RASI chart. What is the difference between a RAM and a RASI chart? Although it says that they may be very similar to each other, but at the same time, RAM is only assigning the responsibilities to different people. For example, for task one, resource X, Y, and Z are assigned. So what we have defined the roles that these are the people who are going to be assigned to this job. This is called responsibility assignment matrix, where we put a tick mark in front of the names of those people who have been assigned to a specific task, right? So I'm not exactly defining what responsibilities that that team member will have, but at least it shows that who all will be there in the team, right, for doing a specific job. So that is RAM. But if we can add responsibility to this assignment, then it will become a RASI chart, because who is responsible, who is accountable, who is consulted, who is informed, all of these are actually different roles. These are the roles, yes. And who all are assigned, that is the responsibility, right?
Sorry, Suhail. SI is not related to time.
Say again?
SI is not related to time. Because RAM is related to assigning the responsibility, but SI,
Okay.
what I can recall, yeah, it was actual start and actual finish time of the old task. Or
As
I just
as I said, that all the resources I am going to put into the project, they have to be scheduled. They have to be put into the calendar, right? They will be part of the schedule. But right now, when I'm saying who all will be responsible for doing this job, so I nominate a team of 5 people that you people are collectively responsible for this job. These are the people who will do this job. So here I don't need a schedule as such. We will decide about the schedule later, but I know that this job is a 5-man job, and these are the 5 people who are assigned to it. This is called responsibility assignment matrix, right? But
Mhm.
when I say, okay, out of you 5 people, you are going to be the responsible for doing this job. You are going to be accountable for doing this job. You are the person with whom we'll be consulting for further information, and you are the person whom we need to keep informed. Now, interesting part is that we are not only talking about the team, all the stakeholders involved may have some role to play in that activity. Maybe somebody has to give the approval. Maybe somebody has to provide the suggestion, like consultant. Maybe somebody has to be kept informed. So when I talk about these RASI thing and RAM and RASI, then probably it is not only about the team. It could be about the role of other stakeholders also in this specific activity, right? Let me see if I have got a chart for that. No, I don't have that. Let me show you how does it look like. Okay. For example, I create a matrix like this and I make columns in it and I have rows. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm putting the name of people on top, maybe X, Y, Z, A, and B. These are the people who are in my team. And this is task number 1, task number 2, or activity number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Let us assume there are only these 5 people on the project. So I say on task 1, this person and this person will be responsible for doing it. Task 2, this person, and this person are responsible. Task 3, this, and this person is responsible. Task 4, this and this is responsible. Task 5, these 4 are responsible. Task 6, these 3 are responsible. And task 4, these 2 are responsible. Now, this kind of chart is called what? RAM or RASI?
RAM.
It is a responsibility assignment matrix, and it does not talk about the roles. But a refined form of this thing is I say, okay, on job 1, what is the exact role of X on it? So maybe X is accountable for this job and Y is responsible for this job. In this case, maybe for task number 2, Y is accountable, Z is responsible, and probably we have to consult with B, right? Again, accountable and responsible. Only one person can be responsible. One person can be accountable, right? And maybe this person has to be informed, and so on. When we use these alphabets R, A, C, or I in place of the tick marks, it becomes our RASI chart, which explicitly shows who all are responsible for these tasks, who all are accountable for these tasks, and so on and so forth. So this is the difference between the RAM and the RASI. I hope you understand that. Okay, let me get back. Okay, moving on. As far as the adaptive or agile projects are concerned, this is a question here. Which of these statements is true regarding adaptive resource planning? There are 4 statements in front of you. Teams self-organize to distribute work. Adaptive teams never have a leader. Team members are a mix of generalists and specialists. Team members should be T-shaped. So which of these four statements are true?
The first one is true.
First one is true. Okay.
Adaptive teams never have a leader. Every team has a leader, so it's a false one, I think.
Okay. Adaptive teams never have a leader. So this is not right, huh?
Yeah, I think this is false one.
Okay, good. And
Team
what?
members are metrics of generalist and a specialist. Yes, it's true.
True. And
Team
fourth
members
statement?
should be T-shaped. I'm not sure about this one because I forgot what was the T-shape.
T-shaped is actually the same concept of generalizing specialist. They
Okay.
they have they have depth of knowledge in at least one technology, and they have breadth of knowledge about lot many other technologies, right? So in a way,
Yeah.
we are saying the same thing. These are the T-shaped people who are generalizing specialists.
So this is true then.
So this is also true. So only this one statement, adaptive teams never have a leader, is not true. But well, if you mean by leader that this leader is a kind of autocratic leader, well, then it could be right that this could also be correct. But because the team itself who are working in an agile project, the team within that evolves automatically. The team lead is not the expert on everything. Team lead is there just for servant leadership, just for providing facilitation and support to them. Whereas the leadership will emerge from within the team, that is, because everybody is a generalizing specialist, then people will switch leadership roles throughout. So you are again right that adaptive teams never have a leader is a wrong statement. They always have some leader, no matter if the leadership is changing all the time, right?
Suhail, having the leadership is essential for all, project methodology. Um, it's not so sometimes we can say if it's agile, we can
Hmm.
have no leader, and if it's adaptive, we should have leader. So this is the concept that I am thinking that it should be true that um it's essential and every team has to have a leader, right?
Of course, I agree with you. I agree with you. But the only thing is that role of the leader is very different in Agile, right?
Yeah,
Although
every role is different. Yeah.
I do agree with you that we need to have some kind of leader at all times, right? But in predictive, we have one leader who gives all the orders, right? But in agile, it doesn't happen like that. Though we have a leader, but it's a servant leader, or it is a evolving leadership or floating leadership, or you can call it a spontaneous leadership, right? Because they are generalizing specialists and they are T-shaped people. So this statement is false that adaptive team does not need a leader at all. Okay, filling resource needs. Um, well, I am more concerned about the non-living resources here in this statement. I'm not really much bothered about the human resources, although you can apply this on them as well. But when I say filling the resource needs, I am classically talking about resourcing sourcing my resources from external sources, right? So when I'm getting resources from outside, what is the impact on cost, time, and quality? Again, as we have studied about the cost benefit analysis, that may apply here. With every decision, you have to check whether is it feasible for us or not. Is it generating some kind of value? So the benefits should be more than the investment or the cost. Then we should ask ourselves, is there an ongoing need for the specific skill set? Maybe not, right? If there is no need for continuously throughout the life for a specialist, for example, specialist in something, then probably we can hire that person as an external resource, as a consultant. Whenever we need his advice or something, we can get that person on board, right? But this is not going to be a permanent team member. So is there an ongoing need? If there is an ongoing need and we need to have this person continuously with the team, then it is an ongoing need. And if it is on and off need, then probably we don't want to spend money on those resources which are required only for a couple of days in the project. If I hire that person for the project, then for the whole duration of the project, I have to pay for him. But if he is needed only twice or thrice in the project life cycle, I would rather like to, pay him on per dime basis or per hour basis, right? So that is exactly why these resources, which are sourced externally, they are normally their need might change. They may be not an ongoing need. They may be um, unusually sometimes they are required. How steep is the learning curve? When you hire an internee in your organization, that person may have knowledge, but that person may not have much of experience, right? When they work with you, after some time, they start understanding the things, they learn their ropes, and then they can do better performance. So that is called the learning curve. Is the assignment too difficult to learn? Then it means the learning curve is really not really very. It should be. It should not be steep. It should be continuous. Are required resources available within the organization? Naturally, if resources are available within the organization, whether we need them full time or part time, we can acquire them from within the organization. But if they are not, then probably we have to outsource that job to a contractor, or maybe to temporarily hire resources from outside for the duration of the project, right? Okay, anyways, whenever I am doing this external procurement of any kind of resources, the decision whether we can do it all by ourselves or not is called make or buy decision, or this analysis you carry out, this is called make or buy analysis. You know, uh, I need a crane on my project. We don't have that crane available internally with our organization. And naturally, the crane operator is also one of the resources. We don't have a crane operator, we don't have a crane, right? But we need it for this project. So we will assess how often do I need it? Do I need to have crane and the operator of the crane always available with us throughout the life of the project? If we are constructing a multi-story building, probably we are going to live with a crane for a very long time, right? So in that case, it would be much feasible to even procure that crane for ourselves. Well, I leave that decision to you to do your cost benefit analysis and see whether it is going to be feasible for you if you buy that machinery. Because you see, sometimes it is always wise not to buy, but to outsource or maybe hire the services of some expert or some machine. Like crane could be really very expensive, and maybe it is a possibility that the cost of crane is more than the cost of the project. Do you agree with me? Sometimes it does happen.
Yeah. So
So
we can leave now.
in that case, buying that crane is not going to be feasible. So I will have to see how often do I need this crane. If I need it only for once and only for say 10 days, then probably I can hire this resource from the market, from the open market. I can hire the services of a crane operator and pay the rent for the crane for 10 days. Got it? So this decision whether we can do it all by ourselves, or we have to pay for these resources, we have to buy these resources from the market, from the external sources. This is the make or buy decision, and for that we do an analysis, and we can try to find which is the best decision based on the make or buy analysis, and that decision may be adopted in make or buy decision. These decisions are part of a procurement strategy. It depends upon what your organization says about procurement. What is their strategy about procurement? Maybe it is part of their strategy that we will not buy any equipment at all. We will always outsource this job to someone, or we will hire experts on temporary basis, like experts and all. So this kind of this thing is called make or buy decision. And basically, with your make or buy decision, actually the story of the contract starts. The outsourcing starts from here onwards. If you remember, I did mention another term regarding this, and that was a statement of work. You remember that, Kelvin? Statement of work, what we discussed? Do you remember that?
Statement of work, yeah.
Exactly. And you said that in your case, it applies very much, because you're always outsourcing things, right?
Yeah.
Or the contract
Yeah.
has been outsourced to you and you are the project manager. So that statement of work essentially becomes your charter. That's
Problem
what,
with outsourcing is the risk of you engaging people from one
yeah,
organization, and
yes,
eventually
it could be anything.
these people is replaced, and the rotation, it's
Hmm.
affecting the learning curve. So
Yep.
that's the main problem with the outsourcing.
Well, I feel with outsourcing, this is not a problem, because when I'm hunting for resources from the market, then I'm looking for the best of the best resources, and they are already experienced in what they do. Like I need
Yes.
a programmer to hire for something, so I will look for the best programmer, and naturally that person has experience in what they do, and they can do better. Rather than I hire a newly qualified programmer from the market who just completed his education, that person will have to go through a steep learning curve. Only then he would be very valuable to me. But initially he will not be. But if I outsource it to the experts, then I don't have the problem of learning curve at all.
And I say when I refer to the learning curve, I'm not referring to the skills to perform the work. I'm more referring to processes, that you have in different
Uh-huh.
projects. So you may have some different quality, quality plans that you have to understand and follow and report, that may differ from one project to the other one. So that's the learning curve that you somehow just spend, I don't know, maybe up to 1 month, getting these
Mm-hmm.
people, these specialists on track, understanding on how they have to, provide all the reporting, or the way they have to do for
Yep.
example, they may also need to do some specific site health
Mm.
and safety inductions. That, yeah,
When
that
we
is
hire someone to do something for us, I mean, on a contract, whether we want them to do something for us or we want them to give their services to us, number one thing, as I said before, we believe and we understand that this is the best person to do the job. Now, for such a person, it won't be difficult to understand your processes in a very short period of time, right?
That's also true. That's also
Yeah,
true.
exactly. Anyways, so this opens the door to the procurement knowledge area where we have developed the statements of work for all those sets of jobs which we want to outsource. They could be it could be in any shape or color. It could be procurement of items, materials, things, equipment, whatever. Or it could even be procurement of resources, human resources, for maybe on temporary basis, maybe for specific period of time. I need people, more people, which are not internally available with the organization. So I do a make or buy decision, and I say, okay, for this duration, I need 200 people to join my team for only 1 week, right? So I give a contract to someone for sending me 200 people who can do this job, and they will be only required to do that job for these many days, right? Uh, it could be, I am trying to float a contract, kind of what do you call it, a requirement, request for proposal for providing me a solution. Like, I say, okay, this is the whole project, but this part of the project I cannot do all by myself because I do not have competent people to do that, experienced people to do that. So let it be handled by the experts from the market, right? And I hire services of someone, and part of my project I will outsource to them. But I do understand that in construction projects, usually a whole of the project may be outsourced to the contractor, right? And that is exactly what you were referring to, that your statement of work becomes your scope, becomes your charter, right? So I do agree with that because that is a specific case in where we have this kind of arrangement. But generally, when we are doing anything else, we would always prefer that we should have our own in-house team, and major portion of the work of the project should be done by our internal resources, and only those things which we probably do not have competence and skills in doing, or we have some other problem, then we outsource those jobs to some contractors. So, as I said, we are entering into the domain of procurement. So, plan your procurement strategy. Naturally, before you can start planning your procurement strategy, your organization must have a procurement policy, which we referred a couple of slides back, that there should be an organizational procurement strategy. And based on that strategy, I am now developing a plan for all the procurements which are going to happen in my project, and that plan is called the procurement management plan. You might have different contracts under this procurement management plan. Maybe there are 10 different contracts given to 10 different contractors. They may be part of the same procurement management plan. So, but these are the things we want. We don't want them to be done internally with our in-house resources because we think that we are not capable of doing it, or it is not feasible to do it all by ourselves. Okay, just tell me, what do you think? What are the situations when you want to outsource something to to a contractor?
When we don't have that skills or specialty, like among our staff, especially like within
Okay.
my organization, we are outsourcing some consultant to provide some specific trainings for the
Consultant or
auditors.
consultant or maybe a team. We are outsourcing it
Yeah,
to a contractor that
Yes.
we don't want to do it or we can't do it, so you can do it
Mm.
because you are experienced in that and all. But we don't have these resources. So one reason you said that we don't have those resources, that is called that we do not have the capacity. You understand my point? If
Yes.
we do not have the capacity to do something, then we outsource it to outside party. What
And
could be the
sometimes
other condition?
the cost, sometimes the cost effective, because outsourcing is more cost effective to like I can give you an example of hiring one person
Mhm.
and giving them a 1 year contract. So
Mhm.
due to the being a cost effective, we gone through resourcing and the quality, sometimes quantity and quality.
Okay, just hold on there. Hold on there. First thing is, all what you are discussing now, these are the things uh, we have already decided in our make or buy decision. We did a make or buy analysis. We found that outsourcing this portion of work is feasible because it is cost effective, its quality enhances and all that. So make or buy decision includes that, right? But I am talking about the reasons why and when should I outsource. The number one reason, you are very right in saying that we don't have the capacity in our existing team to do that job. The other reason could be we do have the capacity, we do have the expertise to do that job, but we do
Focus
not
on core
have
business.
enough number of people.
Yeah. And
So,
sometimes, we are going to focus on more, focus more on, core side of business rather hassling with small things. So
mhm,
we do outsource,
right,
and then and sometimes access to the newest technology and innovation, we are not buying copier, and by outsourcing or leasing out we can have access to every
exactly.
new version of those those copiers.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, the three things which actually causes this make or buy decision. One is we don't know, we can't do it. We don't have the capability of doing it within our team, so we outsource. Second is we do have the capability, but that is a limited capability. We don't have the capacity to handle such a workload. So let us give this workload to an outside party, outsource it. Third condition is very interesting. That is, we do have the capability, we can do it, and we do have the capacity. We have enough number of people who can do this job. But this is a very risky assignment. Risk is so high that if we do it all by ourselves, there is a likelihood that we will fail, right? So, as an insurance policy, what I do is I say, okay, I am ready to uh, pay a premium to a team of experts who are in habit of dealing with such risky situations. I will outsource it to them on some kind of a fixed cost, and then they will be responsible for the risk. So if risk is too high, and that's why we can't handle it all by ourselves, we probably will also outsource. So basically, there are three conditions when we will decide to outsource. Number one, we don't have the capability. Number two, we don't have the capacity. Number three, the risk is too high. Do you understand that? Alexandra, your opinion on that?
Makes sense. Yeah,
Okay.
no questions.
Calvin, you are convinced about it? Good, good. Okay, so that's all about the procurement strategy. If you have developed a procurement strategy for your project, I mean, you have translated it from the organizational procurement policy and you have developed a strategy, okay, these are the things, this is when we are going to outsource. You establish that rule. Now, you develop a procurement management plan in which you tell how the procurement documents, what procurement documents will be mandated, what types of contracts could be given to various contractors, what are the processes of obtaining and evaluating the bids. So now we are getting into the contract management kind of thing. We are actually trying to form a contract with some external parties. So describe how providers will be managed. How are we going to deal with all these subcontractors? You are a big contractor. You actually took the project from the customer, and now you are outsourcing some parts of your project to some experts. Maybe you are you are constructing a building, and in that building, you have to provide a high-speed fiber optic cable, which is not your expertise, right? So maybe you outsource this portion of work when it comes to installing the fiber optic cable in that building, high-speed fiber optic cable. You may hire services of another subcontractor to do this job. I hope you understand my point. Okay, what are the different types of procurement documents we could create? Naturally, they are all different types of documents, and they are all related to subcontracting, and they are used in different situations. Statement of work is the basic document. Whenever we do the make or buy decision, and we say, okay, this is the job which has to be done by a subcontractor. That means we issue a statement of work to all those interested parties that this is what we want done. So, as Kelvin was saying, that this is the scope of work. Well, not essentially, because statement of work includes only that much scope which is relevant to that area I want to outsource, right? So this is not the whole scope of work, but this is basically the statement of work. But on the other hand, I can justify Kelvin's point of view, and that was that if we were given a statement of work by the contractor, by the customer, and we took the whole project. So whatever was the statement of work is essentially our scope of work. But I would say still we need to develop a scope statement in detail, because the statement of work which was given to us initially might be quite sketchy, although it does include scope, but we have to elaborate more on that and come up with a detailed scope statement as such, which we have studied already in our scope management portion. Are you with me on that, Kelvin?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good, good. So, whenever we are going for any kind of procurement, for each portion we want to outsource, we must first have developed a statement of work for each one of those assignments, right? So every contract will come later, but as soon as we decided that we have to outsource, uh, the statement of work should be ready. Based on this statement of work, we will now decide what kind of procurement document could be created. Now, if you are kind of trying to buy some items from the market, that is off the shelf kind of a thing, that could be covered in a RFQ. RFQ is request for quotation. You ask for bids. Say you want to buy a couple of computers for your offices. So you float a bid, float a quotation, RFQ, and the interested parties will quote for it, they bid for it, and whomsoever is offering the best solution, we will award them the contract. Agreed? This is for things. This is for items, materials, or products. So request for quotation is when there is a kind of a thing which is kind of off the shelf. Okay. A similar document is invitation for bid. When you send out the message in the market, you advertise that the bids are, we are open to receive bids. So we are inviting them to bid. Now, this could be very similar to RFQ or RFI, but invitation for bid is just a part of it. Like RFQ is more detailed when we are trying to buy some product or tools or items, we go for a request for quotation. But when we are asking for a solution, we want to assign a work to someone, and we don't want to just buy some equipment or tools. When we are asking for a solution, that is called request for information. Request for proposal. Request for information is a kind of a information gathering exercise. Before we can float a RFP, we usually float a request for information that all interested parties can provide us all relevant information on this kind of job, right? But request for proposal is that I am asking them to give me a solution to my problem. So they bid for it, and then I analyze them, I evaluate them, and whomsoever is giving me that best solution, I will award the contract to them. But this is different from RFQ, because in RFQ, for example, let me give you an example. I want to buy a couple of air conditioners for my office. So what I can do, because if I know the model number and the details about it, the company, the manufacturer and all, then I can simply float a RFQ, and whomsoever is providing me that model with that warranties and all at a cheaper rate, I would go for it. Agreed? Because I knew what I'm asking for. I knew I want a AC. It is of that. This is the brand I want. This is the exact model I want. So probably this could be covered. This kind of thing could be covered in a RFQ. But if I don't know that I need a AC, but I know that I need to cool the room, and this is a special environment, maybe a medical equipment is to be installed in this room, and there are specific requirements of weather control, temperature control, humidity control, and other things. I don't know what solution would be best. Probably I know that none of the air conditioners can serve me. There are customer needs and requirements. So I would float a request for proposal. So the parties bidding for it, they will provide me the solutions, the proposals, and whichever proposal is the best, I'll go for it. But in a request for proposal, remember that we don't evaluate just based on the cheapest one. In request for proposal, we have to look at it from a different angle, and that is we should not just be going for the lower cost. We should be going for the best technical solution, right? So cost does play a matter in RFP, but cost is a secondary thing. Firstly, the people who are trying to give me that solution must be competent enough to do that, must have some history of doing that kind of thing. I must have trust in them. They should have technically sound solution which is being proposed. So until and unless the solution is not technically sound, I will not even consider their costs. So here we have a mechanism in request for proposals that we ask them to submit their technical proposal and financial proposal separately in separate sealed envelopes. Why so? Because we are not going to look at the cost until the technical feasibility has been checked. Right? People are graded based on the technical, and then we may ask that, okay, those who have been screened from for technical solutions, their bids will now be opened. All other bids, all other cost proposals, financial proposals, which have not passed the technical test, they will be rejected. And only those people who have been shortlisted, their cost proposals, financial proposals will be opened in front of the audience, and we would then decide the collective marks of the technical evaluation and the financial evaluation. We will select the winner, and that is the person we are going to award the contract. I said request for information is a document which has no obligations. I want to do something. I don't know certain things about it, and I want to know about them. So I will go to the market. I will float a request for information on voluntary basis. Some people can guide us, can put us wise. Now, expression of interest is a similar concept, but we float an expression of interest only when we have very little idea, very little information about that thing, how to do it. In request for information, we said, okay, out of 10 things, we know 9 things. And can there be someone who can put us wise on the 10th item? But in expression of interest, we have never done this thing before. We have absolutely no idea what to do. So we are even asking an expression of interest for various proposed solutions. People could show their intent and interest that they might be interested in this contract, and they can guide us in the right direction. So these are the things where we will move the expression of interest. These are some of the documents which are called the procurement documents, but there could be more depending on what organization you are in and what kind of things you are doing. But I think this is all encompassing. Most of the things to do with the procurement document are all indicated here, most of them. But I do understand there might be, in your organization, you might be using some other way of doing it as well. So those documents may not be shown here, but generally, from a layman point of view, these are a couple of documents which could be called as procurement documents. Are you fine so far? Okay, then comes the formal procurement processes. That is floating RFP, calling a bidder conference, then clarifying their doubts, then the proposal being received, and then you evaluate that, and then you negotiate the bid, and ultimately you award the contract. So all of this is the formal procurement processes. But generally, when you float a request for proposal, people will have doubts. They will come back to you to ask questions. Yes, you can answer those questions on email or by physical meetings, but it is always fair that there should be a bidder conference in which all the bidders, all the people who are interested to bid, they should come and they should ask their questions in presence of everybody. That means I have to answer that question only once. Everyone else have heard it, and now they will not be bothering me with that question anymore. Right? So bidder conference this is the main purpose. If you are dealing with individual, organizations and answering them separately, then you may have to repeat yourself many times, and then there will be no transparency as well. Whatever the answer you provide to them should now be the standard answer for everyone. So the best way of doing it is to call a bidder conference, call all the prospective bidders, and ask them to, ask their questions. So work closely with the procurement officer or department. In certain organizations, some of the organizations which are doing a lot of procurement all the time, they usually have a procurement department in the organization. Or at least if there is not a procurement department and you have got a lot many projects which are being outsourced to other subcontractors, then you may even have a procurement officer. And if that is not possible and that is not being done, then probably you can have the procurement dealt within the project, right? The project manager takes on the responsibility. Maybe he has got in-house procurement expert, and that can do the duties as a procurement officer in that case. Source selection criteria. How are we going to decide which is the best contract? So these are various things which should be looked into. What is the overall or life cycle cost of the solution being provided by the bidder? Whatever they are proposing, what is the overall or the life cycle cost? Life cycle means that, I'm not just asking them to do this job for me or deliver me this, but I'm also calculating that this solution, what is the running cost of this solution over the life of this product, how much will I be spending? On the other hand, there could be expensive solutions, but at the same time, their life cycle cost or the overall cost is very low, right? So probably I would go for the better option. Then understanding the need. The bidder who is trying to bid for it, do they really understand what we want? Do they have the technical capability? Do they have the experience? Have they done a similar job before? What is their management approach? Maybe we are agile and they are not. So their management approach could be different from us, right? So you have to look at that, the technical approach, their what warranties are they giving, what is their financial capacity, production capacity and their interest, business size and type, past performance of the seller, any references provided by other sources, intellectual property rights, and the proprietary rights. So look at all these things before you make your final selection about the outsourced idea. What is the concept of qualified vendors? Who are the qualified vendors? Fatma, any idea?
Yes, the qualified vendor is the one who made the most of our requirement, and I can give you again the example of the consultant. If they're meeting like 60-70% of our requirement, and their proposal or bid is acceptable in terms of financial bid, that vendor is called a qualified one.
Okay, actually, that is not the right answer. Actually, when we say qualified vendors, we are talking about people on whom we have trust even before they submit their proposal. We do have trust in them because we know them. They are qualified, they have experience and all. So in a way, we have pre-registered them. We have cleared them for bidding in certain types of projects. So they get registered with our organization even when there is no contract. They show their capability, they show their experience, and we register them with our organization. And whenever there is a project, we will ask only these people to bid for it. These are called qualified vendors or qualified bidders, right? They are pre-approved by the organization even before the request for proposal was floated. So these are qualified vendors, and many organizations resort to this solution because it is reliable. It does not waste any time. We don't need to evaluate the vendors to that level as we may have to do if we don't do this. If we don't have qualified vendors, then probably we have to put in a lot of effort in analysis and evaluation. But now, when we have a list of all the qualified vendors and we have asked them all to bid for it, so now we will concentrate only which is the best solution, right? And then we will start negotiating with them and we will select someone.
What Fatma was referring to is the qualified bidder.
Yeah, actually, she meant that anyone who has submitted the request for proposal,
Yes,
right?
and got
And
approved.
yeah, exactly. So, but this qualified vendor are what we call the qualified bidder. These are the terms used for pre-approved people,
Okay.
right? So that's what I wanted to clarify to you. So that is as far as the qualified vendor is concerned. Then we have how to get into the contract. This is generally the process for the contract. First, we determine the need if we need to go into a contract. If that is where the statement of work is created. Then we request the vendors to bid for it. That is a request for proposal or whatever the relevant procurement document you want to float for requesting that. So we do that. As a result, the vendor submits their proposal, right? Now, I'm skipping the bidder conference here because that is not the major step. That is just the clarification of whatever we have requested. So that is obvious. But after the request has been made, the request for proposal has been sent to the contractor, the next major milestone is we receive the proposal, right? And after the proposals have been evaluated and shortlisted, then we will award the contract to the appropriate contractor. Got it? So, in contracts, legalize working agreements, give structure to working relationship, further collaboration with the partners, consider risks. That is very important because, if the assignment we are giving to someone is highly risky, then we may have a different kind of contract with that person, in which we will try to cover ourselves as much as we can. In a way, I'm saying that probably in such contracts where there's a high risk, we try to shift the responsibility of the risk onto the shoulder of the vendor, of the bidder. Deliver benefits to the buyer, different benefits by type, and it can be tailored for the partnership. This is how contracts are developed. We can negotiate them. We can tailor them according to the need of the two parties who are negotiating. Types of contracts, basically there are three major types of contract. One is called cost plus. Then we have got fixed price. These are the three types of fixed price. And then we have got time and material type contract. Let me talk about the fixed price. That is the type of contract in which we shift the maximum load of risk onto the contractor. We ask them, okay, what will you charges for, maybe I'm trying to build a house. I know I can build it myself. I am an engineer, I have the capability, but at the same time, I am not, as a professional, I'm not doing the constructions as such. So, because any contractor who is doing it on regular basis might have the processes tailored within the organization, they can do it more efficiently. But if I do it, it will be more expensive to me. So I say, okay, if I do this job all by myself, how much will it cost? Say it cost 1 million, right? Now I ask the contractor, how much will you charge me? I know that if I can do it myself, I will have to spend 1 million, but I'm asking them. So naturally, they might their actual cost will be less than 1 million, but they will charge their profits and all on top of that, and maybe they will be asking 1.25 million. That means 0.25 million extra is a premium which they are trying to earn out of this risky deal. But when they accept the contract, then probably they cannot change the fixed price. The price has been fixed, 1.25, right? That is the price. Now, if some risk occurs and that causes some damage to the contractor is going to be responsible for taking care of everything, because we have a fixed deal with that person, with that contractor, and he would be paid only the amount we agreed. This is called a firm fixed price. And in this type of contract, we are safe. We are the buyer of the services. They are the seller of the services. So we are safe. We have shifted all our risk onto the shoulder of the seller. And because seller is experienced, they know they can handle the risk and all. So that's why they have asked us to pay 1.25 million, right? And that's what they will be paid. But even in fixed price, there are various types. One is a firm fixed price. Firm fixed price is the one where, as I said, that we just have one amount which has been agreed, and then that is the amount we'll pay them, whatever happens. But when somebody is working on a firm fixed price, what is the motivation for them to do the job even better? For that, we may have to give them some incentive. So another type of contract is introduced under this category. It is also fixed price, but with an incentive fee. I ask them, okay, you asked for 1.25 million. If you do this job, I'll pay you that. But if you do it early, I'll pay you this much amount extra. That is an incentive fee. I'm trying to motivate the customer to do better. Just not be effective, but be efficient. For efficiency, I'll pay him maybe 0.1 million extra. That is an incentive fee. Third type of fixed price contract is when we are dealing with a contract in a very risky region, maybe which is prone to earthquakes, where there is war going on. So in such a area, such a location, fixed price may be very dangerous for the contractor. Contractors will not like to bid for it. So they need certain allowances, because maybe there is the inflation is fluctuating. It is getting high and high. Maybe the international currency parity is very quickly changing. So you see, economic situations are not very good, and therefore The customer says, okay, I'll do the thing in whatever the cost fixed price you have fixed, but at the same time, you allow me an economic price adjustment in case there is a war in your country, or there is some natural disasters. So we will be compensated by economic price adjustment. I hope you understand my point. So these are the three types within the fixed price type of contracts. And this is the cost plus. Now, cost plus, what is this cost plus contract? Cost plus contract means I hire a contractor who does not take on the responsibility of the whole project, but he just takes on the responsibility of getting the job done, right? Now, in the previous case, the fixed price case, I just will pay them 1.25 million, and they will arrange for the resources. They will buy them all by themselves. They will invest into all that. So that is a fixed price contract where I have no risk. But in a cost plus contract, I control everything. I pay for whatever is bought, whatever items are bought for the construction of my house. As soon as they order some cement or steel or whatever, when the order is delivered, I pay the invoice, not the contractor. Contractor will just ask me for some kind of fee for his or her services. Maybe that is a percentage of the amount of the contract. Maybe that is a fixed amount which will be paid to him, or maybe that is somehow related to some kind of incentive or reward. So here we have got three further types. One is that we will pay for the cost of the items plus whatever the fixed fee has been decided. Second option is we will pay for all the costs upfront, plus we may pay them some incentive fee for delivering things better, earlier, and more economically and more efficient. So I am trying to incentivize that thing. So that will be cost plus incentive. Then there is a third type of contract, which is very similar to cost plus incentive, but it is called cost plus award. In the incentive, it is clearly written in the contract what is the amount of incentive we will be giving them for doing what. As far as the award is concerned, that means the contractor does not know how much will be the award, right? But it is also a kind of incentive that you will be, you will be rewarded for whatever you are doing with us. That is normally released at the end of the project, at the end of the contract, that award fee. And nobody knows what that award fee is, but generally speaking, this award fee is really handsome. But this is unlike incentive. This is not known or agreed what would be the exact award fee. So these are the three types of cost plus, and then we move on to time and material contract. Maybe we require us services of a consultant for only 5 days. So probably we cannot go into a long-term contract with this kind of expertise. With this kind of expertise, we probably have to resort to another method, which is called time and material. Time and material means that I will pay for your time and I will pay for your whatever the equipment you will use or materials you will use. Maybe, a consultant, as soon as you call the consultant to come to your site, that consultant may be 1 hour off. I mean, coming from the office location of that customer, that consultant is at a distance of 1 hour from our place. So he will start his stopwatch as soon as he receives the call, and then he gets there. So he will even get paid for that 1 hour of travel. And then he will, work with you for say another 5 or 6 hours. You will pay for the 5 or 6 hours, and then you will also pay for when the stopwatch is closed. That would be when the contractor gets back to his office. So 5 hours of work and 2 hours extra. He will be paid for 7 hours. That is a fee he is charging on per diem basis or maybe per hour basis. So in a time and material contract, this is for short assignments. This is where we fall short of certain expertise. We say, okay, we know we can do it, but at the same time, we don't have that many people to do this job, but I need 200 people immediately mobilized who can work for next 10 days. And then we do not need them anymore. So I will hire them on a time and material contract. I'll pay them for their time and the materials they have used, and ultimately the contract will be closed. This is, very different from cost reimbursable or fixed price, but we can somehow join it with those contracts as well. But right now, what I'm talking about is I am discussing it as a separate type of contract. Again, I would say you hire consultants, you hire subject matter experts, you hire temporary staff for some time. They all are covered under the time and material contract. Good enough?
I have a question, Suhail. In this method, in this kind of construction project, we refer to the fixed fixed price contract, like the lump sum. Is that correct?
Yeah. Exactly. This is a lump sum amount, and then we negotiate and we agree on a fixed amount that will be paid to the contractor at the end of the contract. That's about it. Well, it is not necessarily at the end of the contract. It could be in installments. Maybe the contractor needs some mobilization advance. We say, okay, we will pay you 20% mobilization advance. You can start working, and then we will pay you after every 3 months. Right?
These
And
are
your
kind of the payment milestone that we may have.
Exactly.
So, but it's right to refer to the fixed price as a lump sum as well.
Yeah, of course. This is the same thing.
Okay.
This is
And
the
the
same
second
thing.
question is about the turnkey contract.
Yep.
It's not somehow
It could be.
referred here, or is
It could
not
be.
referring as a contract, but a type of project?
No. I would call it a firm fixed price contract.
Turnkey.
Turnkey, yes. I asked you to construct a hospital for me and hand over that hospital in working order, meaning you should operate it, you should run it, and when it is running all right, that is the point I will come, I will check everything, and I'll take over. And once I take over, I'll pay you the firm fixed price. It can be a firm fixed price, it can be a cost plus, or whatever other type of contract could be. But yes, of course, a turnkey project is definitely any type of these contracts.
It's more, the turnkey concept refer more like the way the contract is executed.
Yeah, of course. Turnkey means that, for example, you constructed a house for me and you are making it completely operational. I just have to go and unlock the door. Turnkey, I have to unlock the door. Every facility is already available there. It is in running order, right? No more work is required to be done on it. Fully functional. Right, so that is that. Agile contract types I will discuss, but let us have a little break. Maybe 10 minutes is okay with you? But we are, okay. We started at 11, 12. Okay, we are in the middle of the class, so we can have a 10-minute break. and we will meet after 10 minutes. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. Okay, we were talking about the agile contracts. They are different. They're not like, the fixed price and all. This is different because the nature of agile is different. You see, the peculiarity about any contract is that they have the requirements clearly defined. So contracts are usually associated with the predictive project management. But what if we are doing agile projects and we have to outsource things? We have to consider it we have to create or invent a new way of contracting. So agile way of contracting, they have come up with many different options over the years, and I will show you some of them, although we cannot discuss them in a lot of detail, but generally, these are some of the various kinds of agile contracts. First one is multi-tiered structure. So what you do is you get into a contract with the other party, a master service agreement to capture only the fixed items, the warranties, the arbitration, things which will not change if the requirements all even change. So you try to develop that kind of master agreement, but then the list of variable items could be put into the schedule of service. But because everybody knows these are variable items, they can be excluded or included later. Therefore, you can just talk about, okay, this is our going to be our the service rate, and this is going to be the general description of the product or some things like that. So they're evolving requirements, right? So we have to somehow deal with that. And you can use a statement of work to itemize the dynamic items which are changing, and naturally based on the scope, schedule, and budget. Means you have to deal with agile contract of this type with a lot of care. We have to continuously monitor what is to be changed. But one thing we learned from the agile manifesto is that contract is not as important as the customer satisfaction. Customer satisfaction is prime. If customer wants to change anything in the contract, we should be always ready. We should not resist it, right? So basically, that facilitates the agile contracting. Then another thing could be you emphasize value delivered. You say, okay, as much value you deliver, you will be paid accordingly. So create a contract from that perspective without any limitation to the specifications. Well, the requirements may change, but whatever we tell you to do and whatever you have done, you will be paid for that. And that can continue until the customer is satisfied. So I think this is even better. Value delivered. Third is very interesting because this is a fixed price increment. We are not asking for a price for the whole contract. We are just fixing the price for one increment. For example, we say that based on our previous experience, the effort we put in one iteration is kind of, we are going to charge you $5,000 per iteration, right? That means no matter how many iterations are there, you can keep adding requirements, iterations may increase, and you will keep paying us $5,000 per increment. That is like a per dime rate, right? Like we were doing the time and material. So it's a kind of a per dime rate that we have fixed price for an increment, and customer is not naturally, they won't want to pay forever. Naturally, they want this job done. And as soon as their highest priority items are done, they would say, we don't need any more, right? And let's close the project there. It can be done that way. Then you could have another way of doing it, that is not to exceed time and material. You limit your budget to a fixed amount, that this is the budget, and if the work exceeds this budget, we will stop there. We will not do those items which are beyond that budget. So although we are allowing the customer to change requirements and we are working on the high priority items, it's not a fixed requirement we are talking about, but as soon as the agreed limited budget has been attained, has been achieved, we will stop the project there and then, right? So this could be another way of doing it. Another way is graduated time and material. We connect quality and timely delivery of work to financial award. Like, in time and material, what we do, we pay them just like, time and material is something we said the fixed price increment. That was also something very close to time and material. Now, graduated time and material, we connect quality and timely delivery. So we are trying to give a reward for the good work they are doing. And at the same time, this financial reward is reward for early and reduce the late delivery. If they can do it faster, they can do it better, they will get more money, right? And although the requirements are changing all the time. Early cancellation option, that is, we tell the customer that you can cancel the project anytime you feel like, right? But we will keep delivering whatever you want. I mean, you keep changing requirements, we keep delivering high priority items. Whenever you feel that project has delivered enough value, you can ask us to stop, and there we stop in our tracks, and the project can be closed anytime. So early cancellation option. Dynamic scope option gives option to vary scope and fund innovation at specific points. Maybe at a release point, at the end of a release, we should review our requirements and we should vary the scope and fund innovation only at the release point. So this could be another interesting method while limiting supplier risk. We can vary scope at specific points to adjust the features and innovate. Well, this is just like we have got phase gates in our predictive projects. Phase gates, where we complete a phase and then we negotiate, then we move on to the next phase, and then we negotiate, and so on. So this is a dynamic scope. Scope can change very easily, very quickly, but at the same time, we are, only changing them at certain specific predefined intervals. And that would be the release point. Team augmentation. Now, this is again a very interesting thing. That is, this is also called joint application development. Initially in software industry, they came up with two ideas which ultimately culminated into agile. One was rapid application development, that we should be able to develop the software faster. And second was the joint application development, that the customer and the contractor work together in development process. They work together because when they work together, they would realize the need for changes and they would mutually negotiate and agree on that. So embed supplier resources directly into the customer organization. For example, my agile team, I am trying to sublet my agile team to them. Again, it's just like the previous one which we said, what was that? Fixed price increment. So we are not charging for the increment, we are charging them for the team. The team will go to the customer premises, they will work with the customer organization, and they will release funds on like they've hired the team. So they will fund team instead of scope. So as far as the scope is concerned, they're free to change anything, anytime, anywhere. So I hope you have got a little bit of idea how the agile contracts are very different from the predictive projects. These contracts are different, but at the same time, at so many places in these agile contracts, you can see the glimpse of like fixed price, like time and material, that those same concepts have been evolved into agile contracts, right? But these are all
So,
very
which
interesting methods, and there could be more methods in the market. But I just wanted to give you an idea that there are so many agile contracting types, and they are evolving all the time.
in which one is the most
Okay,
typical
done
or
with this
most
one?
commonly used?
So the components of a contract could be, when you sign a contract with someone, naturally, I'm not giving you a format for that, but
I
I'm
don't
just
think he
telling
has his
you,
headphones
these are
in.
the items which should have been included somehow. It should describe the work, deliverable, and scope. In a way, this is the expansion of the statement of work. Then there should be delivery date and the schedule information, identification of authority when appropriate, responsibilities of both parties, the customer and the contractor, management of technical and business aspects, price and payment terms, provisions for termination when the project can be terminated abnormally, applicable guarantees and warranties, intellectual property, who will own that, and security, confidentiality, and data privacy. So, well, you can suit it to your requirement, but your contract must encompass all of these topics. Question: which two are components of resource calendar? We have four options. Two are right: working days, training strategies, availability of physical resource, and recognition plan. So what are the two things in a resource calendar?
First option A.
Alexandra, can you try?
I think it's B and C.
And yes, C is, I think A and C.
Fatma, your mic is on.
Yeah, can you hear me?
No,
No,
he
I
doesn't
can't
have
hear
his
you.
headphones in. No.
Okay, just a moment. My
Me.
fault.
No.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Hello.
Yeah, option E,
Still, I
A
can't hear
and
you.
C. Oh,
Okay, just a
I
can you
can
moment.
hear
hear
me
you,
now?
Fatima. I can hear you.
Me too. Hello.
So must be
Yeah,
something wrong with Suhail.
no, it's okay. It's okay now. I can hear you now. Yeah, Fatma.
Okay, I think option A, working days, and option C.
Okay, everyone agrees? Option A and option C. This is the correct answer. We did this question. What R stands for in RASI? That is the responsible. D option. An architectural firm has spent a great deal of time and effort creating the design and blueprints for the building. They had to purchase materials and hire consultants and have been working on this project for 6 months. They have submitted all the invoices for the money they have spent on the work, as well as invoices for the fee of 90,000, right? So what type of contract are they talking about? Is it a time and material? Is it a cost plus incentive? Is it a fixed price with economic price adjustment? Or it is just a cost reimbursable contract?
It's the cost reimbursable contract.
It is cost reimbursable. But what is this fee? This is over and above.
Yeah, 90,000 should be reimbursed.
Okay, this is the fee for this is the invoice for the work. So it is a cost reimbursable, right? You're right. Okay, we are done with this chapter. Next is budget, and I would like to do it
Suhail,
quickly. Yes, please.
which of the agile contract types is the most commonly used? Agile.
Let me get to that. Okay. If you ask me, I would prefer the fixed price increment. That is very comfortable for both the parties. They would know. that they will be charged per increment. So that will be very nice. And the second best would be the team augmentation. That is also the same concept. We are trying to, the team is outsourced to them. They have hired a team, right? And they have to pay for the team, no matter how long they get the job done. These are two very interesting phenomena. But all the methods are doable. They are all workable.
Thank you.
Most welcome. Okay, as far as the budget or cost is concerned, again we have to do some kind of budget planning. In a predictive project, we begin with a fixed budget because we have limited budget and limited time in the beginning in a predictive project, and well, that could be a constraint, right? But in a hybrid project, naturally this is adaptable also, a little bit adaptable, little bit predictive. But in agile, teams collaborate with the stakeholder partners and finance stakeholders to suggest incremental budgeting approaches. So basically, agile has a different mechanism of releasing or calculating the budget. I would say when we are doing the product backlog, at that time we paint a outline picture how much funds may be required for this project, but that is not something which is cast in stone. That is something which is changeable, and we agree that we are doing an agile project, so probably these figures are going to change. And why they are going to change? Because we are continuously going to be changing the requirements, right? So agile teams continuously get in touch with the customer or the stakeholders, and they collaborate with them. The requirements will be incrementally changed and all that. So yes, we can live with that. So cost can also change. But as far as the budgeting in agile is concerned, the detailed budgeting, actually that is done in every iteration. When you start the iteration, you estimate the cost of that iteration, and then naturally based on that, or even if you don't estimate the exact dollar amount, you can still be paid according to your effort. The story points which I mentioned earlier, how many story points can you do in one iteration? Those story points are the effort put into it. Maybe we are not relating it to the cost right now, but we can get it written in the contract that every story point we will charge you this much, right? If there are 26 story points we have done, at the rate of $500 per story point, we will charge you this much. So this is very interesting. Without even doing any calculations, any estimations, any detailed estimations, we still can do an agile project just based on approximation. That is the fun of agile, that we keep the things so simple that a layman can understand and can do it that way. Whereas you have seen, like in the scheduling, there is a complicated mechanism of developing a schedule. There are critical paths, and there are relationships and dependencies. Too much work to do. But in agile, we are independent of all these complications, and we make the things even simpler with every change. Anyways, as I said, budget has to be planned in every type of a contract, every type of a project. Predictive budget planning could be first develop a cost management plan, use some estimation techniques to do that. And when the cost, all the costs have been calculated and they have been plotted on a graph, and you exactly know when to have how much money to move on with the project. So that would be the flow of money into the project until the whole budget has been spent, right? So that is called the cost baseline. Basically, this final shape, when is baseline, that means that you have budgeted it. First, you are estimating the cost. Then you get the approval. Okay, this is the final mapping of when I need how much money for doing this work. And then they will say, okay, this baseline is approved, and now you can start working. So this is the cost baseline. And this calculation, the sum of all the activities is called the budget at completion. Every activity may have its own budget, but when we keep adding all these budgets, at the end of the day, the total budget of the project is called BAC, that is budget at completion. And if you remember the concept of planned value and earned value, we have discussed. So every point on the S curve was the planned value at that point in time. Do you remember that? Did we talk about it or not? Okay. So what I'm saying here is that this budget at completion is the highest point, that is the PV of the last day of the project when all the job would have been done. So that would be sum of all the costs estimated for all the activities is the BAC, budget at completion. Like this is the S curve, right? This is how the money is going to be spent. This is our plan. It has not happened yet, right? But if I can somehow draw it against the time and the cumulative value of the cost. So, for example, let me draw it. Okay. Let me say what is going to be, okay, I'm sorry. Okay. Right. For example, this is a point. If I want to find that at this point in time, how much money should have been spent, then I have to draw a perpendicular towards this side, and whatever amount is shown here at this point, that, for example, this is 6-week point on time, and this is all the work which should have been completed by 6 weeks. What is the value assigned to that? Value estimated and approved for that in the baseline is, say, US dollar 900,000. Got it? So you see, on 6th week, we should have spent this much money. We should have accomplished work worth this much. Do you agree with me? And similarly, if I can look at the last highest point of this project, that is the end of the project, which probably is, say, this point is, say, 12 weeks. This project life is total 12 weeks. And how much have we spent by that time should be the total budget of the project is probably US dollar 1.980, not 1.9. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So every point on this S curve is my planned value at that point in time, right? I could have a planned value at this point, at this point. Every point on this S curve, I can just go down and see what is the time here, and I can go left and see what is the amount here. Are you with me on that? So this graph, this black line, black curved line, S-curved shape, that is actually showing the planned value throughout the life of the project. And what is the planned value of the last moment? That is 1.98 million, right? Okay. In addition to the baseline for all the activities, which is the BAC, management keeps a little bit of reserve with themselves to look at to cater for certain uh, contingencies. Now, I'm not talking about reserves are the contingencies. Contingencies are there. They are built into the reserves are there in your budget. But on top of that, there is yet another kind of reserve which is at the discretion of the management, and that is over and above the BAC. So BAC was 1.98 million. Maybe the uh, okay, let us assume that the money we have kept for management reserve is, say, US dollar 200. Okay, let's keep it more simple. 20,000, right? So US dollar 20,000 has been kept as management reserve. That means the total budget of the project will now become US dollar to this much, 2 million. Are you there? Okay, you see this black line, this black curved line, this is the plan. This is the cost baseline. When we finalized the plan, we came up with this diagram. We came up with this S curve, and that is as per the plan. But do the things happen exactly how we planned, or they happen differently? What do you say? Although we try that things should happen as per the plan, but we don't have any control on nature. There could be events which could happen, and maybe we end up spending more money for lesser job. Agree or not? So the actual expenditure, actual cost which has so far been incurred will be plotted later as a dotted line or as a different colored line, like the dotted line shown here. What does it say? What is it showing? It shows that up till this time, up till this time, there was no money spent. Why? What happened? As per plan, we should have started working at this point, but we started here, right? And during this time, we spent no money at all. That means project was started with a delay. Agreed? And then, because we started here, so this is how we are moving ahead. So you will keep a track. What is the difference between this point, which is the planned value point, and the actual cost point? Well, the planned value and actual cost, these are two things which cannot be compared, right? So it is just saying that, okay, I don't know what is the reason, but we are spending less. We are spending less than planned. Why? Because we started late, or because we are spending less, we don't know, right? So this line, the dotted line, is actually the line of actual cost, right? But there is no comparison, as I said, between actual cost and the earned value, planned value. We need to have a third term which is going to tell us how much work actually has been done so far. Got it? How much work is actually done? That is a third line. So earned value is a third line. First line is planned value, and then we have got actual cost, and then maybe let me draw it somehow as if you can understand. Let me draw it in a different color. Okay. Say my earned value is something like this. This is the third line. So we have to see, let me write it down what it is. Any point on this line is called my planned value, right? Any point on this line is called my actual cost. And any point on this blue line is my earned value. Do you remember? We talked about it. Do you remember the calculations? Okay. So now, just for the sake of repetition, I would say that you can compare earned value with planned value or earned value with actual cost, because planned value and actual cost can have no relationship except the spending difference could be shown, right? When you compare the planned value with the earned value, that shows how much work have actually been done. How much work has actually been done as compared to how much work which should have been done by this point. So anyways, right now what it shows is my earned value is more than my planned value. So I don't know how, but we have done more work. We have done more work than what we were supposed to have done. If I look at the same situation at maybe at this point, what do you say? Where is my earned value? This is my earned value. So this point is my earned value. This point is my planned value. And this point is my actual cost. So comparing earned value with planned value, earned value is lower than the planned value. That means we have done less job than it was planned to have been done. Because earned value is lower than planned value, so we have done lesser work. We have not done all the work which we were supposed to have done by this point. And actual cost is lower than earned value. That means actually the money we have spent on ground is less than how much work we have actually accomplished according to the budget. That means we are saving money, but at the same time, we are far behind schedule. You agree? So you can do this comparison at any point. I could draw lines anywhere, like, let me draw lines in different color here. What color should we use? Okay. But okay, let me use the purple color. I can draw a line here. I can draw a line here. I can draw a line anywhere. So I will compare the PV, EV, and AC, and I will deduce. And naturally, you remember the formula, how we do it. So far, so good?
Yes.
Okay. So historical data naturally would be very good for us because as you remember, when we talked about the estimation techniques, I said that the same estimation techniques could be used um, for costing as well as for resources. So what were they? Analogous estimation, the other estimation techniques like, we have got the parametric estimate, we have got a top-down, bottom-up, and what was that third type? I don't remember the name exactly. But all of those methods which were applicable for estimation for the schedule are also applicable to cost, are also applicable to resources. So historical data could help us relate with the previous experiences and do the analogous and um, parametric estimation based on that. Then you calculate the cost of resources. Naturally, you will have, when you are trying to find the cost of each activity, it will be the cost of all the materials, cost of all the labor, cost of everything which will happen within that activity. That will be the planned value of that activity, right? But then what all activities are happening at any one point in time, maybe there are 3 activities are happening and there are other 10 activities which have already occurred. So right now, my planned value would be all the work which has been done and all the work which is being done. That would point to our planned value at this point in time. Anyways, for predictive projects, things are different. We match project need to the resource attributes. Resources are available. They are amply experienced. You see, if resource is not available, work will be delayed. If they're not experienced, they can still cause some kind of delay. And if they are very experienced, maybe they can do things faster. If they lack knowledge, skill, we may have to spend more money in increasing their knowledge and skill and competency. So you understand the cost may vary, but this is the best guess we are making when we are establishing the cost baseline. Create initial estimate based on average rates. So initial estimate is never accurate, never ever accurate. So there is a estimate which was made in the business case that is not as accurate as the one we are doing when we are doing the cost estimation in the actual project. But when we move ahead in the life of the project, there are many things which will be revealed in future, and maybe we have to change our estimates accordingly. So as we move ahead in the time, our estimates start becoming solidifying. They are more solid. But as we go backwards in the past, we are just predicting. We are just guessing. There's a guesstimate. Anyways, for an agile project, you assign a blended rate, estimate points, like we can estimate them according to the effort. And that is a very good way of doing it. How much effort a user story may require? Maybe 10 story points. So we will charge it from the 10 story point of view. We may have a fixed rate assigned to each story point. I'm not talking about this user story. The story point is the level of difficulty or effort involved in doing a user story. So the story points for different stories could be different. Some would be a high figure, some would be a low figure. But anyways, if I have picked up 3 or 5 or 10 user stories, I'll sum up all their efforts and I will say, okay, out of these 10, I have done 8. And if I add up their story points, it comes out to be 88. So 88 is my story point, and I will charge for that, as I said, $500 per story point. So 88 multiplied by 500 would be a simple estimate, a very simple estimate. You could use a simple formula to estimate the cost per point. That is simply loaded team salaries for the period. I did not consider the salaries here, but he is adding the salaries of all the 10 team members divided by the points completed. That is, say, 88 points have been completed. So that will give you an interval of n. use this formula to estimate budget. Cost per unit, which we have just calculated up there. There's a per unit cost that which I said, let's assume 500. But now it is not an assumption. You have actually calculated the cost per unit, right? By dividing the salaries of all the 10 people who are working on it by the points completed in this interval, right? And then when I get the cost per unit, I multiply it with the total point value of the items to be completed. Plus, if there are other expenses, this is the forecast we can have in agile projects. We can forecast things. We can project it. We can, come up with a figure. But we don't get involved into a complicated calculation of planned value, earned value, or actual cost. We usually do not use that. But if you want to use it, I don't mind, right? But general guidance in Agile is to keep the simple things simple as possible. Okay, estimating cost, estimating the cost for each activity or work package. This I told you. And remember, when you are doing that, please include everything: the direct labor cost, material cost, equipment cost, facilities cost, services cost, IT cost, and the reserve. And once you have estimated this, you can add all the activities up and say, okay, this project is going to cost me this much. But whatever the guesstimate you have made, how accurate that is, how accurate could it result to be? So for that, I must tell you, we have got various layers of accuracy. The minimum accurate is a rough, rather I would say a lump sum estimate is a kind of a very broad category of estimate. And although it is not shown here, but I am telling you, lump sum estimate could have a variation of -50 to 150%. -50 to 150. That means if your lump sum estimate for something was $100,000, then there is a high likelihood that you end up doing it just in $50,000 or in $150,000. So -50 plus 150. Is it clear for you? Okay. What about a little better estimate? That is called a rough order of magnitude. Well, I would say lump sum estimate is used normally in the business case. Rough order of magnitude could be when you are broadly estimating the project cost, which may or may not be very accurate. So that variation is the acceptable ranges that we are expecting from rough order of magnitude to be accurate to the level of -25% to 75%. I am sorry, the first one, lump sum, was not -50 plus 150, it was plus 100. Plus 100 means that if your estimate was 100,000, the job can be done between 50,000 and 200,000. I am sorry, I said 150. So what about the rough order of magnitude? If your estimate was 100,000, what is the minimum cost could be? And what is the maximum cost? -25% of the 100% is $75,000. So it is on the positive side, we could have done it in $25,000, and on the negative side, we could have done it in 175,000. When I say negative side, that is a delay. When I say positive side, that is saving. And more detailed estimate is called a definitive estimate, and a definitive estimate is the one which is done by the project manager, and that is the highest level of accuracy one can do it. But again, because we are just making an estimate, it might not be very accurate. So even the ultimate estimate you make, the definitive estimate the project manager makes for each activity, the level of accuracy could be -5% to 10%, plus 10%. But there is another estimate in between the definitive estimate and the rough order of magnitude that is called a budgetary estimate. And budgetary estimate is the people who are allocating the budget, what figure is in their mind, right? And how accurate is that figure? That figure, which is in the mind of the budgetary people, the finance people, that is -10 plus 25. That means if the estimate is 100,000, it could be done earliest in minimum in $95,000 and maximum in $125,000. And definite it 95 to $110,000.
First estimate -5 plus 25, you're saying?
No.
Hmm.
Let me write it here. Okay, first we have the lump sum. Lump sum is minus
100.
50 plus 100, which for an amount of 100,000 would be minimum 50,000 and maximum 200,000. Got it? Then we come out a rough order of magnitude. That is, let me correct it by putting a percentage here. Okay, so it would be rough order of magnitude is -25% to plus 10. Sorry, not 10, plus 75. 75%. So for $100,000, it could be what? $75,000 to 175.
5.
Is it all right? Okay. Then comes the budgetary estimate. And that is -10% to plus 25%, which means 90,000 to 125,000. And that definitive is -5% to plus 10. That means 95,000 to 110. You see, as we go into more detailed, more accurate estimation, the difference between these two figures are decreasing. You see, it is just 15,000 different. Let me write here. What is the difference here? In the first case, we have got a difference of 150,000. In this case, we have a difference of 100,000. Here we have got a difference of 35,000. And here we have a difference of 15,000. Got it? Okay. Right. So should I move ahead?
Yes, please. Thanks.
Most welcome. Okay. So your budget could be like that. If you look at this diagram, you will see that your each activity cost is here. In a work package, there could be more than one activities, right? So within a work package, you are calculating the each activity cost, and for every activity, there might be some reserve applied to it, and it will differ from activity to activity. The contingency reserve for the activity is explicitly defined by that activity. So it is not a fixed figure like 5% or 10%. So some activities are more risky. So maybe we may like to keep more reserve for it. And there might be certain activities which have no risk at all, right? So every activity will be cost will be calculated, and the relevant risk contingency reserve could be added to the estimate of each activity. Here, for example, the work package had 5 activities. Those 5 activities, along with their activity reserves, will be summed up, added up to find the estimate for the work package, right? That is a bigger level. And interestingly, because it is also it is a bigger work package, we again have a contingency against that work package on top of the activity contingencies which have already been catered for. We still keep a little more reserve for this work package. Every work package does have a reserve on top of it. So once I add all the work packages and their contingencies, that will be called the control account. Now, control account has no reserves because control account is accounting. Like, accounting is accurate. You have $100, you spent $100, you are left with zero. There is no space for contingency. There is no contingency in accounting. So control account is the portion of your project, whether one wing of the building might be one control account. Under that one wing, there could be various work packages, and under those work packages, there could be many activities. So once we have added all the work packages along with their contingencies, that would be sum of one control account. And if there are 4 control accounts, then when I add all those 4 control accounts, that will give me the cost baseline. That is the S curve. The highest point of the S curve would be the cost baseline. And on top of that, like we kept 20,000 reserve for the management. So that is on top of that. That makes the total project budget to whatever amount, 2 million or whatever. Are you with me? Do you understand what I said here? Okay, adaptive and hybrid budget planning. Well, there are certain points you have to take into account. In a hybrid project, in an agile project, focus on short-term budgeting and metrics versus long-term. So in agile, we don't think long-term. We just go into an iteration and then calculated threadbare. Then we go to next iteration, we keep doing that again and again. So short-term budgeting we are doing. We are not concerned about the whole project right now. Set time periods for work, like we have iteration limited to a specific period, time of month, number of weeks. Base cost on the resources used for that time period. Like I said, the salaries of all the people who worked on it. So that is the resources used during that time period. In a hybrid project, we will estimate in detail at the top, but the lower down, we will be using the same method as in Agile. Budget considerations, estimate budget based on the length of the time of the project. Burn rate in Agile especially is the number of team members blended or actual team member rates, and time of involvement. How much have you attained? How much resources have you burnt them out? Then assumptions of full-time team involvement. If there are not part-time team members, full-time, how much will it cost? Will that be more feasible or less feasible? If additional equipment or supplies are required, add them to the estimated cost, right? Because they might not have been catered into in any of the activities. If they are not, then please add that cost as well in your total budget. Question here is, what is included in activity cost estimate? Supporting data or additional information to justify the cost estimate. Estimates on probably costs necessary to finish project work, including direct cost, labor, material, equipment, etc. Estimate on probable cost necessary to finish project work based on the responsible bids obtained from the vendors. D. Estimate on probable cost necessary to finish the project work, including the direct labor, materials, equipment, facilities, services, information technology, contingency reserve, and indirect costs. What do you mean? Which is the right answer? Kelvin?
B.
Which one?
B.
B. But that does not cater for the indirect cost. And when you are estimating, you must also include the indirect cost. Therefore, D.
B.
No, B is not correct. Indirect
Okay.
cost must also be considered. Look at the D option. It's very similar. Talks about direct labor. It talks about materials, equipment, facility services, facility and services, IT, and contingency. Everything is same. And it also talks about indirect cost, which is not in option B.
That's what is called PGP, PCG.
No, your answer is right, because it says the indirect cost may not have been may not be determined, may not be able to be determined, right? We don't know that. So probably indirect cost will go into the
indirect costs are not included
that
in
will
the
go
cost
into the
estimate.
contingency. That will go
Yeah.
into the contingency. Yeah,
Yeah.
you are right. B is the right option. What is the process to create a project budget? Take the rough order of magnitude and decompose it into cost of work packages. Second option is combine all individual activity cost estimate and contingency and aggregate them to the entire project. Submit this to the sponsor and modify it if necessary. C. Estimate cost necessary to finish project work, including direct cost, labor, material, equipment, facilities, services, information technology, contingency reserve. And D. Create an S curve with the cost on the y-axis and time on the x-axis. What do you say? How do you create a project budget? Alexandra?
By estimating the
B.
whole cost.
Estimating the?
Estimating the whole cost, like, we are preparing budget by estimating the whole cost or forecasting the whole cost.
Isn't it very difficult?
I would say B.
Why don't you do it in the B manner? Individual activity cost estimate, put the reserves on top of it, sum it all up into the work package, put another reserve on it, sum it all up into the control account, and add all the control account, and that will be your project budget. Right? So
Yes, you're right.
B is the right option. A project manager is using a time phase project budget to measure the cost performance. What is that budget called? A time phase budget. Cost baseline? Cost estimate? Cost baseline. Okay. Time phase budget. I don't know if this is right.
Project manager is using a time phase object.
Which one?
Measure the cost performance.
Time phase budget. Time phase budget means on X and Y axis. X axis is the time and Y axis is the cost, right? So,
But isn't the
baseline just
process isn't the process of this making an estimate?
correct answer should be cost baseline. I think there's some mistake here. That is the cost baseline, right?
yeah, because the cost baseline monitor the cost performance. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, anyways, let's move on to the risk. I will be very brief in the risk, but you see, there are certain concepts which I have to talk about. Risk is, what is risk? Risk is an uncertainty, right? If you're not sure about what is going to happen to you, and there is a likelihood something may happen during the project, now that is a risk. And risk will remain a risk until the uncertainty is there. As soon as that uncertainty is removed, risk just simply evaporates. Risk is no more. Because there is no uncertainty anymore, risk is no more. Are there any remnants of the risk after it evaporates? Or for that matter, after a risk happens, what is left behind? Because when the risk happens, it is no more a risk because uncertainty has gone. It has now happened. But what are the remnants of a risk? Any idea? Okay, let me say it again. If there is a likelihood of something happening, whether it is good or bad, that would be considered risk until and unless that uncertainty exists. When that uncertainty is no more existing, that does not mean that that means the risk is no more, but at the same time, is the damage no more? Risk, when it occurs and you don't take any measures, risk occurs, it will cause damage, right? So when risk is no more, what is left behind? That damage is what? That is an issue. That is an issue.
Yeah, issue.
If a risk becomes an issue, then no, your strategy has changed. Previously, you were trying to reduce the risk as if the impact is less. Now, whatever has happened, risk has happened, risk has occurred. Therefore, there is no more uncertainty. Now, whatever is the leftover is called the issue, and it is still a problem for us. We have to resolve it. So, there must be a mechanism to deal with the issue. Like we are going to establish a mechanism to deal with the risk. But dealing with the risk can only be during the life of the risk. When the risk is no more, it becomes an issue. You can't spend your money on issue. You understand my point? Issue is a different subject. Issue is to be dealt with by some other mechanism. But risk management is only until the risk exists. That is the number one point. You must remember that risk is uncertainty, and when uncertainty is no more, risk is no more, and the leftover is usually called the issue. On the other hand, we say that risk can be positive and risk can be negative. Agreed? A positive risk is an opportunity. A negative risk can be called as a threat. Now, back to the initial point. If a risk occurs, it becomes an issue. What about if it was a positive risk? Is this statement all-encompassing. If it was a positive risk, maybe you had a probability of winning a lottery, and the risk occurs. You win the lottery. So what is left behind? Is it an issue? The amount you have won, is
No,
it an issue? No.
no. We
So
refer them
issue
like opportunities.
opportunity was the possibility of that thing happening. Now it has happened. It
When
is
an
no more.
opportunity become true, is what you're saying.
Yeah, opportunity, when it becomes true, it becomes a benefit.
Benefit, yeah.
A negative risk, when it comes true, it becomes an issue. As far as the benefit is concerned, we don't need to take any action because something good has happened to us. We don't want to reduce the impact of that. But as far as the issue is concerned, we want to minimize it. We want to get rid of the issue. So we will resolve the issue. We'll take certain action to resolve the issue. Or if we can't resolve it, we will escalate it to the next higher level. I hope you understand that. Opportunity, threat, issue, and benefit. Got it? Now, what is a trigger condition and what is a sensor? When you identify a risk, whether it is a positive or a negative risk, there must be a point in the life of that risk when that risk is too close, and at that point you want to be notified. There must be a mechanism to trigger the risk, as if you can take those last minute actions before the risk occurs. So risk trigger is that condition which, if it occurs, we will immediately be, whatever we have planned in our risk response, we will initiate that response. You understand my point? That is triggering. And an affiliated concept is sensing. How does the system sense that this trigger is about to trigger? Right? So sense is like, if there is a likelihood of raining, somebody is watching the sky on the daily basis. If it is getting cloudy and, dark clouds are there, maybe he senses that it is going to rain now. And as a result of that sensing, that can initiate a trigger automatically or manually. That trigger could be initiated. I hope you understand. So I've given you the concept of opportunity and threat being positive and negative, issue and issue resolution and issue escalation, trigger and sensor, right? So every risk could have a sensor, every risk could have a trigger, and so on. Now, another thing, the first sentence, risk may be known to you or it may not be known to you. You can't guarantee that all the risks in this project have become known to you. There might be still a lot many surprises in the dark. You don't know. So there are other risks which you don't know, but they do exist. You could not identify them because you did not have that depth in your knowledge. You can't look into the future. You are not a portrayer. So ultimately, risks could be known or they could be unknown. Right? So far, so good. Let me move on to the basic concepts. Basically, a business risk, not a project risk, a business risk is related with either gain or some kind of loss. Like, either you are getting a profit or you are getting a loss. So that means a business risk varies between positivity and negativity. But a project risk we are trying to classify them separately. There are risks which are more likely to be happening in the positive side and more likely to be happening on the negative side. We call them positive and negative risks. Predictive, we do it like that, but in agile and hybrid, as project uncertainty increases, the risk of rework increases. Because naturally, if this risk is getting closer, we may have to adjust, customer may change requirements. Adaptive life cycles use smaller increments. That is the advantage we have, because in agile we use increments and they are very small. So the risk could be very small as well. There could not be a very large risk in a single iteration. To enable feedback and progressive elaboration of the scope. What is a risk appetite? Risk threshold. And there is another term which is called risk tolerance. Let's talk about that. Probably I gave you an example earlier. How much will be enough to bother you? Did I give you the example of a single fly bothering you while you are working? A single fly is just flying around you. Sometimes it sits on your nose. Sometimes it sits on your hand. But you are doing something with concentration. So, how big is this problem with the fly? Is it a big problem?
So it's less
It's small
small,
problem.
small, yeah.
And can you live with it? Do you really need to kill it? Do you
Not
really need to
necessarily.
respond? No, not necessarily.
Not
That means
necessarily.
that is a bearable risk. So I will try to establish a threshold. If anything which crosses that threshold, then it must be reacted. We must take action on that. So maybe I introduce another fly in your work zone, and now there are two flies bothering you. You are having difficulty doing your work, but still, is it within your threshold or not? Can you handle two flies?
Can really still.
Yeah, maybe. So now there are 10 flies bothering you and you can't work at all. You have reached your threshold. So you have to determine how much risk is too much. Anything
Okay.
which is within the threshold, that is acceptable by default. I don't need to take any action. So I have to determine the risk threshold of my organization, and the distance between the threshold from one end to the other, from the positive side to the negative side, is my risk tolerance. Right? Right? If my threshold is from one fly to 9 flies, that is my risk threshold. Anything beyond that will be officially recognized as a project risk. Agreed?
Yes.
Okay, within my tolerance, which is between 1 and 9 flies, what is the easiest for me to handle? What is the range which I am not really bothered? I don't consider it a risk at all. I mean, by the way, 1 to 9 is not a risk at all from the tolerance point of view. But how much number of flies is normal to you? Say 3 flies. So that is your risk appetite. Generally, people confuse risk appetite with the risk tolerance, but actually, I would say that risk appetite is the amount of risk you can happily take, and risk threshold is the limit you can take up with a little pain. You bent backwards until the 9 fly point. you keep absorbing that much risk. And as soon as it goes to the quantity of 10, that is too much. I will consider it a proper risk and I will respond to that. Got it? So I have introduced you to 3 more points. One is the risk tolerance, risk threshold, and risk appetite. One more thing I want to tell you, that is, there are people who are risk seekers, there are people who are risk neutral, and there are people who are risk averse. Generally speaking, anyone who is looking for risk seems like a good option. Anyone who is not ready to call it a risk, he's so averse to the risk, he doesn't want to recognize the risk. This is the risk averse, which is a negative quality. And risk neutral is a person who it doesn't matter whether a risk is there or not, whether it is going to, he's not even averse to the risk, he's not even a seeker of the risk, but he's just neutral about it. So these are 3 categories. Let me show you something. Like, I will show the negative side of it. A risk averse, it is very clear that like a pigeon closes its eyes when a cat approaches it. Just by closing its eyes, it thinks that there is no cat. But cat comes and eats it away. Got it? So these are the people who are just like pigeons, who are ignoring the cat because they have closed their eyes. They're ignoring the risk. They are risk-averse people, and they are the worst of the kind. They are ignorant. They don't want to recognize the presence of a risk. So that is a very bad characteristic. As far as the risk neutral is concerned, I would say I would like to educate this person, make kind of that person aware about how this risk can impact us, and he should really take some action. If not a very big seeker, but at least he should recognize that yes, that is a risk and that can be damaging. Risk seeker is kind of proactive, and this guy moves out of the way to find the risk. He digs the risk. But the negative side of this risk seeker is a person who is not intelligent enough, but he is trying to seek the risk, would be like, he's trying to bang himself into the risk, that I am very brave, I can do anything. We don't want that kind of behavior. That is not a risk seeker. That is a stupid person, right? He will damage himself without any planning. So I would say the risk should be taken in a very calculated manner. Take calculated risks, not be a wild risk seeker. Risk averse is really bad. Risk neutral has to be improved. So I have now introduced you to few more terms like risk seeking, risk neutral, and risk averse. These are normally called the types of risk appetite. Right? So far, so good. Okay, we are having just a couple of slides, maybe 25 more. I don't know if you have time or we should pen it for tomorrow.
One question about the risk exposure. Is the same like the risk appetite?
Not really. Risk exposure is when a risk is more than 9 flies, I mean, that will be classified as a risk. Anything less than that is within the threshold, and therefore we don't call it a risk at all. Anything within the risk threshold is not a risk. You understand
Yes.
my point? That in our organization, we have decided that if the damage in the project is up to $500, we don't care. We will accept that. So we
But
don't
coming
recognize.
back to the flies example. So we say that 10 is not acceptable. So
Yes,
under
9
10,
up to 9.
is the threshold, correct?
Up to, yeah, exactly. That is the threshold.
But we say that we can deal with the flies, at least with 3 flies. So the 3 flies becomes the risk appetite, is what you were saying, isn't it?
Appetite, forget about the appetite. A threshold is a bigger thing. The
Okay.
pain, the risk you can take with pain, that is the threshold. Right?
Okay.
So within that threshold, any risk is acceptable. We don't
Okay.
call it a risk at all. We don't take
Okay.
any action on that. We take
Right.
action on 10 flies and more.
Correct. So the risk appetite in that case,
Risk appetite could be lower. Risk, like, that is your internal matter, that whether you want to, you can absorb, how much risk can you absorb happily,
the 3
and
flies that
how
we
much
say,
is
if we
too
have
much.
3 flies, we
Yeah,
are within the threshold, but
yeah,
we can deal with that.
within that threshold. Yeah, the appetite
So
is
what
within the threshold.
so and what is the risk exposure that you're saying?
Okay, risk exposure we are going to cover later, but risk exposure is normally how, if there is a risk identified as a risk, I mean, outside of the threshold, then we try to estimate how big this risk is. What is the
Okay.
impact of that risk? We are trying to
Okay.
find the impact of that risk through the exposure.
Okay.
So, okay, so should we finish now and deal with the remaining tomorrow? I can just quickly scan through that and get you through this chapter.
Like the ladies talk.
Yes, please.
I think it's too late here in New Zealand, like in
Okay,
Auckland. So
fine,
yeah,
fine. Agreed. So we will do
thank
it
you.
tomorrow, but I don't know if
Yeah, tomorrow.
yeah. And then we decide what we'll do about the remaining portion, right? Thank you very much and take care. See you again tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Most welcome.